Live right now.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Or good afternoon, according to where you are. It's Louisa Tanner-Munson from Feel Good Astrology, and I'm joined here once again for my weekly, I have to say, like my weekly tonic with Rick Pursell, who is a resident in Bali. You might be able to see the lush vegetation behind his shoulders there. He is in the rainforest, I guess, aren't you? The beautiful forest of Bali.
Yeah, actually the jungle, the tropical jungle is right in front of this office. So you're looking at the back of the villa, and in the front is the river or ravine.
Oh, I mean, it's so beautiful there, so peaceful. It's amazing. So please forgive my tardiness there. That was a bit stressful, wasn't it? Just literally before a minute we go live, it was like, uh-oh, where's my sound? Anyway, we are.
Well, if I'm your tonic, I suspect you may have had some gin with it.
I don't drink. That's the funny thing. Right. Apart from lots of water, check it out. I've got a few lined up here for me. So our theme today is Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, which isn't so much a theme as it is a title. So we're talking about mirroring and I guess, how does it happen? How do we recognize it? And all that jazz. So, like, what's the first thing you'd like to share with us about mirroring? Probably that it's going on, which is why I suggested it as a title. Yeah. Go on.
I guess we better start at the beginning. What is it that we are mirroring? And it's basically the shadow. It's the shadow side of us, the ego side of us, the unconscious yang side of us that is percolating up to the surface. So when we look at that, this is the root cause of what's coming out of us. So recognizing that whenever we are, first of all, the shadow side is there. It's part of our makeup.
Yep.
The complete makeup. And then what happens is if they're uninspected, if it's not been released or resolved, whatever it is, it could be pain or trauma. It can be some very uncomfortable feelings. If they're not released, then we tend to project them. Right? We disown them, or we not disown them, because to disown something means to have owned it. What we haven't done is taken any responsibility for it. We haven't owned it. I'm in this condition because of you, or you've made me unhappy, or I had an unhappy childhood. Whatever label or topic we want to assign to it, we haven't really taken control over it. We haven't taken responsibility for it. And thus, it's not really to do with me, it's to do with somebody else. Yeah. So I'm now going through the process of projecting my shadow side onto other people. Right? Yeah. And it's really an extension of myself, because it's not necessarily about them. They can trigger our shadow. There's no doubt about that. We get triggered by things that happen, right? Circumstances, what people may say, or what we think they might be thinking. Right? So there's the shadow, there's the projection, and then there's the mirror. So in my understanding is that everyone that comes into our life is a mirror of us. They're holding up this mirror for us to have a look at. So on the positive side, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go on.
For our listeners and viewers. So this would be a process as such.
Okay.
Can you tell me, Louisa, somebody that you admire and respect what they've done in their life, what their values are, and It can be somebody from history, it can be somebody present or past, just somebody that you admire and look up to and respect.
Okay. Do you
Go
want me to
ahead.
name them?
Yeah, just spell out. You don't have to name them necessarily, but
Okay.
just spell out the qualities that you really admire about them.
The qualities I really admire about my mystery person are their persistence, their determination, their steadfastness. I really appreciate their ability to learn from their mistakes and to put it right. And they also have a sense of humor. I'm actually mixing two people now.
that's perfectly okay. That's perfectly okay.
I really appreciate, the thoughtfulness there. In fact, both my people who review what has happened in the past, what hasn't worked, and then they also take practical but heart-led action to put it right.
Lovely. Good friends.
Yeah.
So you can recognize and see those quality in people.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So what I'm going to propose, and you probably already know this, but if you can see those qualities and recognize them in people and admire them and respect them and honor them, then you must have them within you.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't have them within you, it goes straight over the top of your head.
Yeah. You wouldn't recognize them as values in the first place, would you? You would just.
No, you wouldn't.
Another person.
There would be such a mismatch. There'd be such out of alignment. There would be no coherence there that you wouldn't see it. So you've recognized those qualities in those people, very admirable qualities, I might add, and that reinforces and acknowledges that you must too have that or those within you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the good news.
Yeah.
You want the bad news?
Yeah, go on then.
Hold on to your hats. I'd like you now to, without naming them necessarily, to describe somebody that you dislike intently. There's no alignment. There's no interest in any friendship, communication, any form of relationship. You might even detest them.
Well, it's an interesting one because the person I'm thinking of isn't somebody I detest, but have felt very angry at from time to time. Oh, actually, I've got a combination of people that just came to me. The first quality that I find very difficult is unsolicited nose poking into. Like when someone pokes their nose into your business, but it's completely unsolicited. I find that very much a struggle. And this is the bit that I find really difficult because I know that if I can recognize it, it must be in me. And yet I take very good care to not poke my nose into somebody's business unless I'm invited to, unless they ask for help. But if I see it, that presumably means it's in me. I don't know, but I find it really, really difficult when somebody is kind of sticking their nose in and telling me what I'm feeling, as if they know without finding out any details. I cannot stand that. People prescribing things to me that I'm not asking for. Yes, I really.
know.
And
I know
then
that feeling.
Can I? I've got quite a few.
Go ahead.
Turns out
we've got all day.
That's good job because I've got a lot building up. And then I also dislike being manipulated or feeling that I'm being manipulated into a course of action to serve somebody else's agenda that is not my own. And I know full well that that's like I'm actually really flexible, and I know that when somebody suggests something that's within my interests, I feel very free to make that decision. So even though somebody is suggesting something, if it resonates with me, I will probably do it anyway because I'm dedicated to finding my own good stream. But sometimes I hear people suggest things that, particular people, I hear people suggest things that I should do that would really help me, but I sense that behind that, it's to serve their agenda, so I don't get the good vibes of doing it. What I get is, I know this would be good for me. However, somebody else's agenda it satisfies something about somebody else, something that's caught or trapped, that's unexpressed, like something from their shadow side. And then I think, I'm not going to do that because I don't feel free in it. Now, if they didn't have that extra little bit on me, I would probably just choose to do it. But it's that feeling that somebody is suggesting something not for my own good, but to serve their agenda. And I really struggle with that.
Yes.
And I've been going through it as well. I've been encouraged to slow down on my work, which would really serve my agenda to, slow down and relax and stuff. However, the person suggesting that maybe I slow down on my work also has a moral dislike and dis-ease with the work that I do. And I felt that all along, but I would never suggest to somebody to stop doing their work because I didn't trust that they were good in what they were doing. Does that make sense?
Yes,
it's getting a bit of a waffle now. I'm going to retract.
Okay. Well, thank you for your honesty. Just remember, I've got a dental appointment. No,
it must be 2:30 where you are, isn't it? Almost.
Round about that. We're going to hang in here.
Yeah. Okay,
so
go on. Help me out with my evil projections.
So let's take the first one, where people are trying to give you unsolicited advice.
Yeah.
And you haven't asked for it. And
Nope.
in fact, it is an invalidation. It's virtually saying, you don't know how to run your life, so
Yep.
I'm going to suggest how you could do it.
Yeah.
Which is really, really, it's their superiority, isn't it? Look, you're making a mess of your life. Let me tell you how you should be running it, because I would never do that. So are there?
That my job is, giving advice.
Yes.
or suggesting. I am aware of that. Go on.
But
Hit me with
people are there on their own volition, and if they don't want it or don't want to take your services or your astrological advice, then they're free to leave at any time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what you're getting there is that person's sense of superiority. Now, do you ever feel superior sometimes?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Just a little bit?
Just a lot, yeah. I realised that while you were saying that, I was very emphatic with my parents as to what they might do about their health recently, because of research that I'd done, which I knew full well they hadn't done. And, I felt like I was trying to save their life. However, I then pulled back and realised, it's their own decision.
Yes.
And that's a very difficult thing to learn.
Yeah, it is, because we have their best interest at heart.
Yeah.
Right? We're in a way, we're trying to protect them from harm that they may not be able to see. So we're giving what we think is good advice, but in a way it's unsolicited to a degree.
Yeah.
Or it's not received, willingly received. So maybe the same words from a doctor, possibly, would be greatly assumed and assimilated. But when we're very close to people, it's sometimes very hard to take their advice, especially in relationships. Right?
Yeah.
It usually takes a third party for something to change. So you've recognized, as we all have, there's a little bit of superiority inside here that just raises its head. And in essence, that's what you don't like about that person. It's not them at all. It's that, that harsh reality. I've got a little bit of that in me, and I don't like it in them, and I sure don't like it in me. So with the light of that consciousness shone on it, we can catch ourselves as the silent witness saying, "Ooh, hang on a minute, slow
down,"
and curb it. But necessarily expect it all to go away straight away. We just have to put it into practice, right?
Yeah.
Just and replace separateness with, or superiority with, unity and equality,
Yeah.
right? Having
Yes.
something to replace it with. Separateness, the opposite of separateness is unity,
Yes.
and the superiority is equality. And
Mm.
when we embedded those as values, they will come to the fore when there's an opportunity. You could couch your conversation as, would you like some advice on that?
Mm.
Right? No, I'm okay. Good, very
Mm.
good. All
Mm.
right. Not condescending. Or could I express what's happened for me and how I dealt with it?
Mm.
Right. It may not work for you, but if it's okay, if you would like to hear that. So you're giving their tacit agreement to listen to what you have to say
Mm.
without it being advice. It's a story as such.
Mm.
And sometimes that can soften the whole conversation.
Yeah.
It's one thing.
Yeah. It's been a bit of it's been a bit confusing for me, I have to say. Yeah. Yes. So it's interesting how that plays out in the body as well. How that how the symptoms, funnily enough, have been mirrored between the person that I've felt slightly oppressed by and what's going on in my own body. We've had mirror symptoms of something that's uncatchable. At the same time that this kind of mirroring has been going on, it's been quite frustrating. And I've cleared it for myself, which is great. But the other person hasn't, and it's still ongoing for them.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there's your classic psychosomatic response, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a tension, it's a tightness, it's a little bit of stuckness that occurs within the body. And
Yeah.
these are beautiful warning signs. What an extraordinary device this body is, that it can warn us, hey, you've got something here that needs to be looked at and let in and let it be and then let it go. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting how the body, with its 60 to 100 trillion cells and all of them intelligent,
Yeah.
can give us these warning signs. So
Yeah, it's true.
perhaps we need to heed those warning signs.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that was a really good demonstration, Rick, that
Thank you.
we can mirror in a positive way and in a negative way, but the way we see that is pretty much the same. So, the people we admire are the ones that are showing things about ourselves that we admire. In fact, they might not even have those qualities. It's just that we're seeing it in them because it's in us. And then the people that are annoying us, it's the same, but in, one's going positively up and the other's going into a sinkhole.
Yes.
Is there any way to be free of it, or is that just the condition of life? Is that just what is happening in all of our relations all of the time? What's your thinking on that? And in fact, actually, I'm just putting it out there, but to any of our listeners that I'm, seeing, like listening in, let us know about what you're being projected onto, or what you're seeing about others. What's your noticing, and also how are you dealing with it? I'd love to sort of get some of your input as well, and see if we can work together to unravel it, maybe. But over to you, Rick. How are we ever free of it, or is that just a condition? A bit like, we're in a polar place, of polarity. We're always going to see the things that we resonate with, or not.
Well, we do live in a dualistic universe, so there's always going to be good and bad, hot and cold,
Yeah.
love and fear. All of those things exist, and unless we're out in some other dimension and we're inhabiting this universe, then there will always be that polarity, that two sides of the one coin. However, it is possible to transcend the ego. We don't get rid of it. Right? Mind comes up regularly. It comes up, manifests as some form of fear or separateness or superiority or judgment. It can be victimhood. It could be any of these subsets. And when it comes up, I view it for what it is, right? And then I know it's coming from the ego because it's a low level, low frequency vibration.
Yeah,
If it's
it
coming,
pulls down.
yeah, really, it does feel yucky, all right? And so I look at it and I think I immediately recognize, oh, there's the ego. So I talk to it. It's my best friend. It
Yeah.
is my best friend. And it arises and I say, good morning, ego. What have you got for me today?
Hello, old
And
friend.
yes, and the ego looks at me like I'm stupid because I only have fear for you, Rick. You should know that. You've
Yeah.
been carrying me around for this long. So I'm inviting you once again, come down this road, this path of fear with me. And I'll look after you. You'll be the king. Everything will be okay. Don't worry about anybody else. They don't matter. Just I'll look after you. I, me, mine.
Yes.
So that's the one gift. And then the heart speaks up. The ego is always louder. It tends to deafen out the quiet voice of the heart. But the heart or the intuition or the soul, whatever label we want to put on these things, speaks a lot quieter and says, you could always come down the path of love with me, Rick, right? You got a choice here,
Yeah.
right? So the ego has given me a choice. Come down the path of fear. The heart has given me another choice. Come down the path of love. And this is how we do have control over this. Anytime and every time. Every time we choose love, we have just transcended the ego. Right? We've gone beyond it. It's still there. Right?
Yeah.
It's still looking for a chink in the armor that it can get its sword in and open into a festering wound.
Yes.
But if we nip it in the bud right there and then and say, no, I've been down that path of fear, and you know my story. I've been there, and I don't need to experience more fear, more separateness, more superiority, more victimhood, more of everything. I don't need to. I've had a lifetime of it, and I've now consciously choose the path of love.
Yeah. Yes, and I imagine there'll be many days or even moments where you don't initially connect with that choice of love, where you start to go down. And is that, I mean, I made an assumption there, but is that how you recognize it? Because all of a sudden you get that shitty feeling or that feeling that you're somehow like hungover or you've been out with a mistress, like, because it is like an unfaithfulness, isn't it, to yourself?
Well, it is, because the definition of the ego is a false sense of self.
Yeah.
A false sense. Yeah. So it's not what the ego tells us is a lie. You're not good enough. You're too old. You're too young. You haven't got a good enough education. You're not pretty enough. Blah, blah, blah. All of this is a lie, because underlying that which animates this body is infinite.
Yeah.
But we listen to this voice of the ego saying, you're never going to make it.
Yeah.
Right? Or you're so ugly. You're so stupid. All the things that the ego puts over. And it's lying to you, because if we look at the other side of the coin, we see an infinite being filled with love, filled with appreciation, gratitude, humility, bravery, all of these beautiful heart values. That's our true self. So the ego gives us the inauthenticity to our life.
Yeah.
And when we've had enough of that, we will choose love. We will choose the authentic path.
Yes. And you're rewarded when you do that, because you feel it. You know it's your truth, don't you? It's that feeling of clarity that you're like fully aligned to who you are in purpose.
Yes.
On purpose.
That's priceless. And yes, the ego does, I'll repeat it, does look for a chink in the armor.
Mm.
You know, if I go 2 or 3 days with not good sleep, a very limited amount of sleep, I can be very grumpy and very irritable, and the ego can start manifesting this grumpiness, right?
Mm.
Or if I'm driving down the road in Bali and a truck is hurtling towards us,
Yeah.
got my wife by my side and the two twins in the back,
Yeah.
and this guy is on my side of the road, right?
Mm.
And I'll fear this fear comes up. I want to protect them. I could be flashing the lights and putting the middle finger up and swearing out the window, or I can recognize, hey, this is how it's done in Bali. He's overtaking a parked car. He got there
Yeah.
first, so he's entitled to go round it and then move her back into his lane.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to remind myself, this is how it's done. You've been here 14 years. You know how the driving is done here,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
So
I remember.
often we compare it. We compare what is normal for us in our own country.
Yes.
Compare it. This is what cultural shock is. We're hanging on to what is normal, what we understand, what we witness as the behaviors, and where it's something different. That's where cultural shock comes in, and
Yes.
that's a superiority. Why don't you live like us?
Yes, it really is, and I'm seeing so much of it. You know, I'm going to like take myself out of the equation a little bit here and make it more generic. But obviously, we're living in a foreign country. It's foreign to us, although not that foreign, because it's, you know, we can still relate to the culture quite a bit. You know, it's another European culture, and I'm aware of expat attitudes. Like, I've lived in quite a few countries. I lived in France for the best part of 5 years, and there were lots of people that I chose to not be around. And that's like the vast swathes of expats. You know, a lot of sort of people that come to the country to make it their own country, and don't observe, you know, much of what's already there. You know, they come and they try and change what they're doing. And I guess I recognize that in them because it was in me. I remember when I moved to my first house and my neighbor said, don't do anything in your garden for a year. Let it just grow. See what grows where. Learn your environment. And I did learn. You know, I did obviously like change it all, but later I did leave like one little bit, unchanged, and it was really beautiful. There were some really lovely things in there, and had I actually given time to get into my environment and learn to appreciate it, I'd have learnt the gifts of it. And I see that, and then I see on the news like people are at the moment, like Afghanistan is like the buzzword, and you know, there are lots of people reacting to the very visceral scenes of people like falling off planes and trying to hold on to them. And then there's a lot of people saying, well, we shouldn't have been there in the first place. You know, it's the whole energy of imposition, and imposition and care for another it's a really tricky one, isn't it? You know, like we do that with our children. We try to keep them safe. But when does us keeping them safe become an imposition? And it seems to be something that's definitely learnt in childhood, but it's definitely mirrored at a government and social level. Yeah. By the way, in terms of Bali, I do remember that when I was living there, every single taxi I got in, there were no seatbelts in the back. So I was holding on to anything I could find, like door handles. I think the best thing you can do is be blind drunk, so you're really heavy body, so you would move so much in a crash.
Well, I think you probably move more. You don't become rigid. That's what breaks bones. If you were really drunk, you would just flop forward like a rag doll, and not offering any resistance.
Yeah.
You know, I used to be a petrol head, and I still watch some Formula One now and again. If these guys are in a crash, they take their hands off the steering wheel, because the natural tendency is to grab this as tightly as possible. And then the inertia of the blow comes through and fractures wrists and arms and everything. So if you are restrained, as they are in a full harness, then their body can just flow with this. And they walk out away from these horrific accidents So there's
Wow.
something to be said about that. On the other side, there's been many a backseat passenger go through the windscreen when the car stopped really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's a balance of both those things. So.
Mm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
talking about kids,
Yeah.
it's very easy. The ego can overdo this protective influence that we have. So
Yeah.
we can become very overprotective, and then thus stifling and suppressing their spontaneity, their freedom, their expression of themselves, their adventuresomeness, and curiosity. All of
Yeah.
those can be stifled because they've been overprotected, and of course that is steeped in fear as well. Not
Yeah.
only is it fear for the children, what's very prevalent on the planet at the moment, it's bringing up a lot of people's fear of death, their own fear of death.
Yeah.
So we've always thought that, the old saying is, I won't have an accident. Everybody else around me might have them, but I'll be okay. And with that, we'll take some at-risk behaviors. So we don't want to be overprotective, but we want to keep our kids as safe as possible while giving them a pretty free run, a free lead to explore and experience.
Yeah.
Because as you and I know, and everybody knows, we've gained valuable lessons from some of the harshest lessons, from the harshest challenges that we've had, and so-called mistakes that we've made. So
yes, that really resonates a lot. I mean, I could definitely be categorized as a protective mum because I'm always with my children. Even when I'm working, they're very close by. We're always. I can count on two hands probably in 10 years moments where I've been further than 1 mile away from my children. We're always really, really close by. And if they're not with me, they're with my husband. And on very rare occasions, we've had a babysitter. And, they're always very, very close by. But so, I mean, that automatically sounds like, I would be really protective and really sort of like prescriptive on their behavior. But what you were saying, actually, I realized that what I'm doing is I'm creating the environment for them in such a way that's going to help them explore safely. I don't really put many sort of dictates or judgments on what they do. Sometimes I might say, is that what you want to do? How's that working out for you? Are you liking the results you're getting there? Because, you don't have to do it like that. So I'm always kind of very light. I don't have my hand really heavy on them, but the environment that they're in is actually pretty safe for them to explore. So I'm trying to weigh up the options to give them the chance to explore and get courage and some feedback about the benefits of them taking their own action whilst creating quite a safe environment. And hopefully over time, that environment's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as I think their capability increases. But, we obviously also live in a real world, and they are most likely to find fault with me at some point in quite a real way. Because you can't control these things, can you? You can't control the outcomes, and if they're not relating to loads and loads of people, not as much as other children might relate to, in their schools and environments, then they're going to find fault with us or each other, as they come to learn, because we learn through conflict. It's a tough one. How do you show care and give people the chance?
Yeah, it's a fine balance, isn't it, between allowing kids to step out of their comfort zone and explore an adventure, and it's dictated by the environment, isn't it? I mean, would you let your kids go down the shop in a downtown New Orleans in one of the roughest areas of New Orleans? That wouldn't make any sense.
No.
So we have to continually look at what is this? How can I keep my kids safe in this environment? And where you're living now, they know that environment. They know the woods. They know the area you go and sit down and have picnics.
Yeah.
You can be very confident that they would be looked after there. There's no serious threat. Right?
Like the biggest
An initial threat, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, their biggest threat is probably nature, like climbing a tree and falling out of it, or,
Yes.
seeing a snake. And, I mean, we haven't actually seen a live snake since we've been here, but, those moments where something, amazing or fascinating happens and they're unguarded, but,
Yes. And at the same time, we have to recognize that we're all on a journey and we don't know what anybody else, when we don't, most of the time, we don't even know what our lessons are.
Yeah.
So how could we possibly know what that being that has chosen that body, what lessons do they need? Have they come into this incarnation to embrace and learn from? And maybe it is a snake bite, or maybe it is a broken leg from falling out of a tree.
Yeah.
We can't wrap them in cotton wool.
Yeah.
And if we are overprotective, they will find a way. If this is part of their life's lessons, they will find a way somehow and sometime to experience that, which gives them the lesson that they came for. They will create it. They will create a reality that will give them the challenge that they will be able to rise up and overcome.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one. That's really is a tough one. It's almost hands off.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I try to be hands off more than anything. But I don't trust that I can do hands off without creating a slightly safer environment for them to be hands off in. But
I think that's a good balance. It sounds counterintuitive to be hands off. It's also counterintuitive to wrap them in cotton wool and don't let them go anywhere. So there's a balance somewhere, and juxtapositioning that between what is the environment now, right? That I just need to ensure that they are self and well looked after and safe, and that they can explore and enjoy themselves without getting hurt. Right?
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? I want to kind of get this back around to mirroring and like the shadow again. I really loved what you were saying about you can transcend your ego, because I've noticed that astrologically, when I'm looking at people's birth charts, that it's very helpful for me to find out where somebody is in life. Are they in flow with their ideals, or are they not? Because I can see that some people transcend their birth chart, and then when they transcend their birth chart, the cycles that come around, which might say, well, this is going to be a challenging cycle to do with money, or this, this, that, and the other, then they are almost at choice. They're almost at play with the world and the cycles that are going on. So they're still learning things, but it's not flooring them. In fact, if one of those cycles are coming up, you can use it to your advantage, to really just have fun and to really sort of like create the life that you're interested in. I'm guessing that is the same with mirroring, from what you're saying, that you become more conscious and competent, and then you can recognize what's coming up and maybe have a bit of fun with it. But how do you get out of it if you're stuck in the middle of a projection? What would you do? What advice would you give?
Don't get stuck in the projection.
Okay, here's one.
Easier said than done.
Like when you've recognized that you're stuck in a projection, and the person that you are feeling that you might be projected onto, from somebody else, how do you navigate these conversations if the person that's doing it is really unconscious of it, or is indicating that they're unaware or actually don't want to explore it? Because like you mentioned victimhood earlier, and obviously that's something I've got a bit of a taste for. Because I like to think that I'm a goody two shoes, and I recognize, where I'm projecting onto somebody. And then the moment I recognize it, I think, okay, let's change this. Let's try something else. And, I'll ask for advice from people who I trust to guide me through it. But if you're encountering people that are doing the same to you, that you're correcting, and they're not doing, where do you go from there, I guess, is my frustration.
Okay. Well, if I've read it right, if somebody's projecting on me, how do I deal with it? Does that sum it up?
Yeah. Actually, are we just in the territory of let it go or move away?
Well, and it can be either of those, because we do have a choice of who we want to spend our time with, and the energy that we want to. But it's not always possible to just move away, especially if it's a family member or somebody close. But what I do consciously endeavor. I'm not always 100% at it, but I look through them, knowing, having taught about the ego and the authentic self for 10 years, right? Every month retreat, I've got a good handle on what is ego and what is being authentic. And so somebody's projecting, I can see through them, know they're hurting, know they're in pain, know they've got something that's unresolved for whatever reason it's there, and see through them and see the being, which what I call granting beingness to them.
Wow.
They are this being like me, having a human experience. And I've been where they've been, right? We've all been where they have been in terms of projection. Who am I to criticize them or to judge them or put them down? Because I've had to do the work to go beyond it. Right? So I see what's really there, and sometimes I might say, just, whoa, wait a minute. Could you just rephrase that? And I touch my heart, say it from here. Right? The ego is experienced through a little bunch of cells no bigger than a peanut in the left hemisphere. So I want to get them out of their head and into the heart. Right? So is there another way of expressing that you want to say? That's it's not that it doesn't work. The opportunities like that don't come up very often, and especially if they're really, really projecting. So I'll just see through that, right? I won't necessarily offer any advice. Right? And I won't take it on. I won't take it personally, because the ego takes everything personally. It's very easy to take what they're saying very personally, and what they're saying is not coming from them, it's coming from the ego. So what they're lying to themselves, and they're actually lying to me in a way, or a falsehood. So I try to look for the authentic self in there and recognize we're all on a journey here. And there's just one of us. There's one of us. So this person is mirroring in me that I too am on a journey, right? And that I too am not, and I'm not seeking perfection, but I'm not a perfect human being. I'm not a fully conscious human being. I'm not a fully heart-centered human being. There's still more to do. And the more I do, the more I realize how little I know, and how much more I've got to do. And when I can look at that humbly, I don't react. I can then find a way of responding, right? And I can respond by looking at where are they on the emotional tone scale. If they are angry, I will talk to them in the next level above, which is antagonistic. Bloody government, or those people, they don't care about us. I'm not angry. I've just gone one tone above anger. And when they come up to antagonism, blah, blah, blah. Then I go up to irritability. It's such a pain having to deal with this all the time. They come up to irritability, and I speak to them on the next level, which is boredom. I can't be bothered with these people,
Mm.
right? They come up to boredom, then mild interest. Yeah, but, we've got a lot to be grateful for, Then we should look at the day out here and blah, blah, blah. And you just walk them up the emotional tone scale
Yeah.
until they're through it. So if you want to invest that time, if it's a family member or somebody close or whatever, then that's a way of getting them out of that situation.
Yeah. I found that answer really, really useful, Rick, on so many levels. First of all, I thought you demonstrated like talking someone up the emotional scale in a really beautiful way, because like, I guess what you've just demonstrated is we can mirror, but we can also match, which is a very similar thing. And so like we're leading someone up, like we're not dragging them out of their anger straight to joy. We're just slowly guiding them. I love that. But in what you're saying as well, I realized that my desire to try and own my shadow and trying to work through it is also infected infected with the desire to be right and the desire to be perfect and be a goody two shoes. So my actual desire, my real desire, is to resolve stuff and to get out of myself and to find the beauty that I know exists within me and to express that fully. And my desire to get it right is also to make the other person wrong. My desire to do it as quickly as possible and as perfectly as possible is almost to make the other person seem more wrong than they are, to sort of like demonstrate, look at you. And that's not very nice, is it? So I do recognize that. And that's another way of being superior, isn't it?
It is. It's superiority.
Yeah.
It's superior. And it's, forgive me for saying this, but it's coming from the ego.
Yeah.
Right? The ego wants to make us right and the other person wrong. So we want to put them down and expose them for their weaknesses or their stupidity or their point of view, because mine is better than yours, right? Yeah. I'm more superior in some way.
Yeah.
And then, and more separateness. Okay, we're not seeing the commonality between us, the triune between us.
Yes,
is that there's just one of us.
Yeah. What I was hearing in myself as I was kind of putting myself through that little exercise was when I'm being projected onto and where I'm working through my part of it, I also feel anger when I feel like someone's putting something on me. And so it's my anger that wants to correct things as soon as possible to make myself right. It's anger coming from the ego. It's I'm pissed off when people do that to me. When people put stuff on me, I absolutely hate it. It's like it's the worst thing for me.
Yes. So what you've done temporarily there is you've separated from your true authenticity, which is an infinite being.
Yes.
How can you put an infinite being down? How can you invalidate an infinite being? See, only the ego can be offended.
Oh, you got a like for that. You got a like for that. That was really good.
So
let's know who you are if you like that. Tell us. What was it that you liked about that? Because you noticed something in yourself. And Rick was the great mirror in what he just said there. Let us know. I'm expecting a comment to filter through.
Yes. So, the root cause of all of our pain and all of our suffering, all of our trauma, is that we have disconnected either for a long term or short term or momentarily from who we really are.
Yeah.
That's all. It's got nothing to do with our relationship. It's got nothing to do with the state of the world. It's got nothing to do with this debilitating, life-threatening illness. It's got all to do with we've just temporarily disconnected from who we are. And we've taken ourselves down the path of fear, which is all of those subsets: superiority, separateness. Right? So if we can come home to our true authenticity, It's really beautiful. And I don't do it very often, but I was watching one of the talent shows with Simon Cowell, and there was a young girl on there who came in on the stage, and she was suffering from cancer. She wrote a song, "It's Okay." I can't remember what her name is now, but she was just so okay with having this cancer. And 2 days ago, I learned that she'd passed away. So they had on the show, Simon gives her the buzzer for the ticker tape, the gold ticker tape, and and she backed out of this contest to try and look after her health. So they had a beautiful two-way talk in the audience with the audience, and she just came out with some profound stuff, beautiful stuff. And she's finally passed away, but she died with dignity, right? She died with absolute dignity, no resistance to what is, and just connected to her full-blown authenticity. No victimhood, nothing. I'll send you a link. It's on, I think it's on Britain's Got Talent or one of those. Right.
Yeah, I love hearing about inspiring individuals that find themselves and that really are radiating who they really are, like with none of the mystery. And I actually think what's going on in the world right now is getting us much closer to who we really are, because and I don't know what that woman's story is, but I imagine that the threat of her own survival was the thing that brought her so close up into her own focus, to see, wow, who am I being right now, and what really matters. And that's what's going on in the world. A lot of people are actually thinking what really matters now.
Yes.
Is it this ongoing fight, or is this, okay, like, time out. Let's just be and let's connect.
Yes. And the idea that we're separate from anything or anyone is totally an illusion. And we can't find ourselves because we were never lost.
Yeah.
We were never not there. We, the animator of this body, is ever present, always present, cannot be lost. Right? So we are a fragment of this whole, and only the mind can say, my religion is better than yours, my house is bigger than yours, I've got a better job, superiority, and separate, I'm going to fight you now. All of these, that's all mind created, right? And it's all an illusion, and it's a lie. So the irony is that what we're seeking outside is laying dormant inside, awaiting the light of consciousness to be shone upon it. And we are that light of consciousness.
Beautiful.
We are both the consciousness and the witness, and that being witnessed simultaneously.
That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, it really is. And the person who liked that thing that you said has not come forward to reveal what it was that they saw or heard in what you were saying that really resonated with them. But I'm just going to assume that it was a really useful thing.
Well, we hope so. It's part of this conversation we're having. Serves all of us. It serves me, it serves you, and hopefully it serves your listeners and viewers in some way. And if it's just a question of a little bit of aha moment or an epiphany, or that makes sense, then we've done our job.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, it's worth revisiting why we actually do this, because we meet up on a weekly basis, don't we, and just have conversations, and we decide on the titles based on whatever is arising for us at that time. And from my perspective, it's a commitment to myself and to you. I really enjoy them. I always feel very uplifted at the end of them. I find it's a really good way to laugh at myself and to realize, okay, maybe that it's a bit like sort of therapy as well, isn't it? You like these conversations between us. There's no bad, like if we recognize something in ourselves that might not be our best, this is a very sort of like non-threatening environment to share that in. I really, really love it, and I really appreciate it. And if people do find us, then that's wonderful. It feels good to know that it could help other people that are searching. What are you getting out of these sessions, Rick? Us meeting up.
I guess it's cause for me to deeply reflect on my own circumstances. It gives me the choice to be authentic, right?
Yeah.
And just as real as I can be, not without trying, just being open and honest with my communication.
Yeah.
And often I'm not even aware of your audience. Right?
Yeah, we're not.
It's on the conversation between two friends that deeply love each other.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
both have our families. We both have our lives. We connected at a soul level years ago.
Yeah.
And nothing's changed. So it's just lovely to have a conversation with somebody who gets it and is also on your journey as I'm on mine. It's not a question of who's further along or who's more aware or more conscious. It's just a lovely open communication, and how rare that is these days, especially as we've been, separated by lockdowns and stifled from that beautiful connection that we all strive for. So that's what I get at. It just reinforces our connection and love. So
yes, absolutely.
Priceless.
Yeah, it really is. It's absolutely worth it. Oh my word, we've got a comment. So it's funny, isn't it, that you're saying we're not always aware of the audience. I guess it's quite like our conversations. It is like a conversation between two friends, isn't it? It's almost like people watching are like voyeurs. So anyway, we've got Blush and Brownies. Thank you for joining us. Great listening to you both. I find myself gravitating towards a slower, quiet life. I only found Louisa's channel yesterday, so loving learning about spirituality. Well, thank you so much. Blush and Brownies. How did you find me? Was it through Spiritual Portugal, my new channel with Carl? Where are you as well? I'd love to hear where you are, and also if there's something you'd like Rick and I to talk about next time, because we're really sort of open to that. We quite like the challenge of it, don't we?
And also, we've been doing this for several months, so there's a stack of good videos there if you want to go back through a bit of the history.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, there was one a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember the title of it. I've got a baby. 1 second. Hang on.
Blushin, our last conversation was about what is spirituality, and so we sort of pulled that apart. So if you're new to this subject, then that's good to revisit that video and have a look through that.
We got Mr. Solomon here, who has just
hello,
and he's got his old bed head look, which actually he has that look all day long. Doesn't matter how many times I brush it, he always looks a bit like that, don't you?
I'm envious.
We've got a few more comments now. So Beverly Maidment, she said, I'm here, joined in late as I was up late listening to you and Carl. And that's true, because Carl and I, do you remember me saying, Rick, that Carl and I have created a new channel between us called Spiritual Portugal? Well, our show is at 11 o'clock at night every Tuesday. So I literally had 4.5 hours sleep, because after we did the show, we were both like really pumped, and so we sat on the sofa chatting, holding each other's feet and having a cup of tea. And so I had 4 hours sleep, and this morning it's like, oh my goodness. But then I thought, oh, it's Rick, it's lovely. I love these conversations. So thank you for joining us again, Beverly. And Blush and Brownies. is saying yes through the videos with Carl. Yes, so I'm Irish living in Scotland. Well, I love the fact that we're all we've all got these different locations. So few people now actually live in the place where they were born. I know Beverly's also, if you don't mind me revealing that, Beverly, but Beverly, you're, I think, in Scotland. Are you up there? Yeah, it's really interesting how we reach out and like where people end up catching onto our vibe from. It's really cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are adventurers.
Like 2 weeks ago, the conversation we had, Rick, it caused a really profound effect. And I realized that I had been holding something over Carl for about 4 years. And I was really, really taken by that conversation. So just to kind of like recap, I think we must have been talking about forgiveness and real like love. And I realized that at some point I had a fear for our survival, and I was holding an expectation that I needed to do more, for us to survive. And I realized it was really unloving towards my husband, but it was through that conversation that we had. I'm so grateful because when I came off the video with you, I said, Carl, let's go get a cup of tea, and we sat outside watching early morning Portugal, because we're in the mountains. And I just really wholeheartedly apologized to him for every like wrong thought, I guess, because it was this little program in the background, and it undermines everything. And since then, it's felt so good and so clear and so clean. And actually, if it wasn't for that, our new channel that we've just created, Spiritual Portugal, I don't think it would come about. What I realized from our conversation was that I was holding on to my work and not giving away the parts of my work that weren't that good. I wanted to hold on to my work almost as a punishment, like if I don't work, we're not going to make it, and actually by giving up some of my work, it's created space for Carl and I to work together, which is a real pleasure. But that all came from our conversation, Rick, from 2 weeks ago. And it's so funny how once you get that little release point, all of a sudden something new evolves and it comes up.
Yes.
I'm really, really grateful for that. Thank you so much. And Beverly,
thank you.
That she's Welsh but in Scotland. It's awesome. Thanks, Beverly. So, is there anything else you think we need to capture in this last little bit, or are you in a rush to get off? I know you're very busy, aren't you?
I am trying to be, but not too busy. But our signal just dropped out a little bit. So what was the question?
Oh, is there anything that we just need to cover off, at the end of this session, about mirroring? Any last final thoughts?
Well, yes, just be aware. Just be aware of which voice is doing the talking. The ego is always louder. It tends to drown out the voice of the soul.
Yeah.
And it is always a lower vibrational frequency. And it generally doesn't feel good in the body. Yeah. Whereas the authentic self, the true nature of who we are, it will originate through the heart. There will be a coherent alignment with the head and the heart. And there'll be a sense of liberation, a sense of newness, a sense of hope and potential that is surrounded with that decision and that moment. So just all we need to do is just become aware of ask yourself, how does this feel? This choice I've made, or this conversation, this book, this place, this meal, whatever, always asking, how do I feel about this? Yeah. How does it make me feel? And it's either going to be life enhancing or life destructive in lots of ways. Yeah. So that's the tools to use. And it rolls off the tongue very easily, but it's just a matter of putting it into practice.
Yeah.
And we're all a lot closer than we think. Then we're on this tipping point.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to end the show. Thank you so much once again, Rick. I really appreciated it. And same time next week.
Indeed. Wouldn't
Yeah.
miss it. Wouldn't miss
Yeah.
it for anything. So thank you, Louisa. Thank you to your viewers, and have a
Yeah.
great week ahead. And I'm sending you big love from Bali.
Thank you so much. Love to you and yours, Rick. Thank you so much. And thank you, Blushen and Beverly and all the other viewers that have been watching today. Let us know if there's something you'd like us to talk about. We'll very happily do it. Probably and this is, what comes up for me is that whatever is going on for you is probably going on for the people that you're watching or interacting with. Everyone that seems to participate in a community in some sort of way and show up at a particular time, they often all have similar things going on at the same time. So for that, I absolutely thank you for showing up today. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and we've got a lovely
beautiful.
thank you from Blushen. Thank you so much. So I'm going to end it, and hopefully we'll see you again, this time next week. If we can be of help, just reach out. You can be contacted. Is it info@rickpursell.com or?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So let's get on then. I need to get some breakfast to this little fella because he's
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, lots of love to you all. Bye for now. Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.